Welcome, folks, to Toadstool Tarot. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. Well, it is anyway, whether you watch this or not, right? Today I'm doing a comparison of a number of RWS decks. I don't have them all because there's so many. But these are a few as I collected them and as I am comparing the differences. So bear with me. I originally had now I don't know how to identify it. It was a generic Rider-Waite-Smith deck, the kind that everybody gets in any old store. They had this kind of backing, and I ended up finding others later on that I liked better, and I gave this deck away, but I kept this card because I love Pixie, and there's a little bio of her on there. That's all I have remaining of that deck. At some point I discovered the Universal Waite tarot deck, and this one has Pixie's drawings redrawn by Mary Hanson Roberts, who has her own deck. But it has a very soft look to it. So for people that don't like that kind of hard-edged definition on Rider-Waite-Smith, this could be the deck for you. These are the lovely backs, sort of cosmic, glittery star backs with a little white border, and these are the fronts. And I'm going to have to describe everything to you because I'm not sure my camera does them justice. These look, I always say these look like they were drawn with colored pencil because they have a much softer look to the drawings and the colors than the traditional deck. These also, most of the decks I'm going to show you are copyright by US Games, and there's a little nasty little copyright right along the edge down here. I mean, it's really small and generally you can ignore it, but I wish it wasn't there. This is a very pretty and very soft deck to use. Some of you might prefer this coloring to the traditional deck. If I can show you a comparison. Yes, I'll show you a comparison with a later deck. You can see quite a difference. Now, after I'd had this a while, I found a copy of the same thing in a pocket version, which I also don't have the box anymore. I put it in a little soap box, little plastic soap box, which sometimes works for these little decks. This is has fairly recently been released in a tin. I don't think I need to get it again in a tin because I believe they're the same cards, although I could be wrong. They changed the back from that sort of, cosmic stars design. It's similar, there's just one star there. I like the other one better, but I do like that this is borderless. And again, the same, little colored pencil quality to the images. They look like, I was going to say, oh, actually, it's interesting. The pocket size one looks a little bit darker. Can you see the difference? This one's a little more orangey and a little more vivid. I know a lot of you are not going to care. I mean, an RWS deck is an RWS deck, but not for the particular fussy aficionado. But look at the difference in these two. Now these are the same thing, but one is the pocket version and one is the larger version. And look how much darker the High Priestess is in this one, in the small version. Again, the same thing with the Empress. It's a little bit darker in the smaller version. The larger version does have, generally speaking, a softer colored pencil quality to it. I won't go through the whole deck. I think you get the idea, because there's a lot more decks here to cover. So, that is the Universal, and that's the Universal deck drawn by Mary Hanson Roberts, not to be confused with another deck called the Universal Tarot, which was drawn by, I can't think of his name, it's a guy, and I think he has an Italian name. But that one they made a golden version with gold supplemental embellishments, and the images have been not just traced over, some of them have been redrawn completely and are not Pixie's original illustration. So don't be confused by that. Check out for that. Yeah. So, when I discovered these small decks in a tin, the next thing I latched onto was the Radiant Rider-Waite Tarot in a tin, which now makes me wonder if the full-size version of this is different from the pocket size in a tin. I don't know, because I don't have that one. But I do love tins, and this was, at the time, there was both the Radiant Wise and the Smith-Waite Tarot in a tin. I thought, oh, which one do I take? Well, this one's the prettier one. I didn't really like this image so much. This is like an extra art image that I think I'm trying to remember if there's no, there's not an art card in here to match. In the full-size version, I believe there is. But anyway, I went with what appealed to me more visually in the box. I went with this one. And when I opened it up and looked at it, I thought, oh, well, this is nice. It's a nice, nice, bright, colorful deck. It's not Pixie's font on it, and it still has the copyright, the US Games copyright. It is sort of soft. It does have a similar, almost colored pencil feel to it. The colors are much more vivid, but if you look at the faces, some of the facial expressions seem different, and I'm not going to show you side by side, it's so subtle, but these seem altered a bit in their expressions, which gives me a different reading in the cards. Like, you know, if there's just a subtle hint of a smile on one deck versus the other, that affects the reading for me. It is a very pretty deck, but so, and these, I don't remember if I showed you the backs on these. These backs look very much like the backs on the full-size Universal, even though this is the Radiant Rider-Waite. Now, a week ago, I got the Practical Tarot Wisdom with the Radiant Rider-Waite Tarot deck. Comes in a little box like this. And this has text by Arwen Lynch. This is a deck you can use almost like flashcards to help you learn the tarot if you're new to it. And it's really nice. And these cards are small. They have not gold like shimmery cosmic star background, but still very similar to the other one. Although you notice they put the little US Games copyright on the backs up there. You just can't get away from those copyrights. Now these cards, what I like is they have about, not quite half the card is the radiant image, and the other half is a description or interpretation of the card to help you learn. It's got the number and the label name, and then not keywords, but several sentences that are almost like fortune cookie length interpretation. So like the Fool, the first one is, don't let worry hold you back. It's time to take the leap into the wild unknown. Let your innocence be your guide. You can dance off a cliff knowing that you will either bounce or fly. Either way, you've changed your luck simply by taking a chance at something new. So they're like little succinct phrase-like sentences. And like I said, they remind me of like about the information you'd put on a fortune cookie. But on this card you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these little gems. Then the Magician, 1, 2, 3, there's 4 on the Magician. Now something I noticed when I was looking at this deck is that some of the images have more information on them than other decks. Like, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a little bit more of this rock down here in this image than this image. Oops. And on this one with the Magician, you see how these edges are. Okay, I'm already confusing you, I know. This is not the Radiant that I'm holding up. It's just another small card. It's the Universal, but still. On this one, you see there's a little bit more outside the edge of the image. So you get a little more of the image on some of them. Same thing down here at the bottom of the table. Sorry if these aren't sharp, but maybe you'll be able to see. And so in some ways that kind of intrigued me. And when I went through the deck, I thought, oh, okay, these are not only flashcards and helpful to learn, but ooh, I'm getting a little secret peek into more information, visual information than the other decks. Like in here, the Empress, so you see a little more of the waterfall than you usually do. And there's more of the mountains either side of the Emperor on this one. What else is the... Let me just double check. It's subtle. It's not like a great deal more, but some of them you get more. All right, I don't know that there's enough here to go through a lot of these cards. I just wanted to let you know that in this particular deck, not only do you get the key phrases, but you sometimes get a little bit more visual information, which intrigued me. I don't know where she got that from. I don't know. Perhaps that extra bit of image is on the regular size Radiant Rider-Waite. I don't know because I don't have that deck, but that might be something worth investigating. Let's see. No, I'm going to have a hell of a time sorting my decks when I'm done because I've got cards everywhere. Okay, now, a couple weeks ago, no. For after that tin, the Radiant tin, I went ahead anyway and got the Smith-Waite Centennial Edition in a tin, which for months and months and months, this was my go-to. I decided this is the one. This is the best one. Because what I found in here is there was a lot more detail in the images, and the coloration appealed to me more. The coloration in these has an antique feel to it. The whites are not stark white. They're kind of an antique-y white, and there's almost a little bit of a cast over the background that has a texture to it that almost looks antiqued. Again, I don't know how these compare to the full-size version because I don't have that. This is the back design. I think it's the same on the regular-sized edition. It's alright. I'm not crazy about it, but I don't object to it. But, you know, for the longest time, I swore by this. This was, for me, the ultimate Smith-Waite tarot deck. My opinion has changed. And I'll get to that in a minute. After that, a couple weeks ago, I got the Radiant Wise Spirit, which I fought for a while because I thought, oh, Pixie's probably turning over in her grave at what they did with her images. They put a dark cast on them and they gave them atmosphere. They are borderless, which I like. They don't have her font. These are the backs, which is a sort of a colorized version of the blue flower backs that some of the early editions had. And they used a kind of a smoky filter over these. They don't have the bright colors. I mean, these are bright colors and they pop. They're very glossy and shiny. But some of them I noticed on inspecting closer, it looks like they used a dirt filter over them. This one, for instance, the Magician, has two little freckles in the background on either side of his head, which you will find in at least 2 or 3 other images in the deck. Oh, here's one, the Hanged Man. You're probably not seeing them in these photographs, but they also have the same freckles in the same spots, which kind of irks me. You know, it's like, if you're going to the trouble of putting a dirt filter over things, clean up your dirt filter so it looks like it's a different dirt for each one. Like, these are vintage affected, as opposed to like, we'll just put a transparency over this and we won't mind that these little freckles are on the cards. You know, if they were aged, they would age differently, right? They wouldn't have identical freckles. But I do like these. They have a nice kind of dusky sunset coloration to them. They're very dramatic. They're very slippery. I love the glossy. A lot of people don't like glossy. And I wasn't thrilled with them when I first got them, but since I've been using them, I've been enjoying them more and more. And they just have a nice feel and atmosphere to them. There are a couple other little issues. If I can find the card. This bothers me. It won't bother some of you, but it bothers me. I noticed on the shoot, now where is it? I thought it was the Justice card. It's not. I always get Justice mixed up with the other one that has the scales in it. Let's see, which one has the scales in it? There's two with a woman holding scales. Bear with me. Oh, it's in the Pentacles. Now I remember. Wait a minute. Where are you? Okay. In this one, there's a broken string on that scale. Now, I don't know what happened in the artwork there. It's not in the other decks that I've seen. But it bugs the crap out of me, and a subtle thing like that changes the intuitive part of the reading to me, like, you know, the scales are rigged or something, or they're broken, or I don't know. I've been sort of debating whether to take a fine point Sharpie and draw in the lines to complete Pixie's image, but I don't know on this glossy surface whether that would just rub or chip off, and I'd probably make a mess of it if I don't draw them in straight and it's permanent. So I guess I'm leaving that alone. Some of these little things you just have to learn to live with. But little stuff like that, little errors, kind of bother me. Still, I like the deck. I'd prefer if it had her font instead of this text. I do like the coloring of the little label bar at the bottom. And the booklet that comes with is more informative than the usual little white book. It's not in, I think it's only in 2 languages as opposed to 5 or 6 like Lo Scarabeo usually gives you. And there is a lot more wait, I might be wrong about that. It might be more than 2. Well, it looks like you don't get as much in the multiple languages as the English part. but this text was by Sasha Graham, and so it's not a generic Little White book. It has information by Sasha Graham that I found more interesting than some of the usual Little White books. Now, the cream of the crop. I've been waiting. I got one of these decks like a week ago, and the other one came today, which I'm thrilled about because tomorrow's my birthday. So when I came home this afternoon, I thought, please, please, please let there be a birthday present in my mailbox. And there were two. There was one of these decks and another one of I Ching cards, which I will do a walkthrough later, in a later video. But the first one I got was I saw this on a flip through on the Hermit's Cave channel. It's the Tarot of A.E. Waite by AGM Publishers in the orange box. It is the premium edition. And I'd seen a lot of these, and I thought, how come I've never seen these in the stores in America? The box looks different. Something's different. Let me look into that. And it's a beautiful, very firm box, and you know, lift-off box. And it turns out that you can only get these from Europe because U.S. Games has their copyright stamp on everything except these, because they're out of the country. So I ordered these, I think, through Amazon UK, and then somehow they were shipped from Poland. So I don't know what the connection is there, but this one, part of the reason I got this was I love these cracklebacks. This crackleback design I like better than any of the flower designs on the other decks. And this was, I don't know if it was the original design or one of the first early printing original back designs that were used. These, the cards are beautiful. They're like semi-gloss, which I like. The colors are nice, and there's more detail in these cards than any deck I've seen so far. They are really sharp and crisp. And this is, like, again, it's not going to show up probably in this camera, but besides the line work being so detailed, there are areas where you can see sort of line work texture in the flat areas of color, like the orange inside the sleeves and the blue of the mountains. It's almost not, I don't know if I want to say cross-hatching. It's not quite cross-hatching, but it's that kind of effect of line work where you shade by, you know, repeated line work. And here you might be able to see it in the line work on the tabletop and the shadow shading on the magician's tunic. I don't know, you probably can't see it. My camera is for shit, but in person you will see and appreciate the glory of the fine detail. Another major plus is there's no copyright dates, copyright info on the front or the back, which is a joy. Just the, you know, the images. The only drawback I can see with this deck is that they didn't use Pixie's font. They used, you know, this other little font at the bottom, which I'm getting used to. Still, at this point, this had become my favorite deck, but I had another one on order that I thought, ooh, I might like that even better. And that was Pam's Tarot, original art only. this is another one where they found a vintage deck, and with just the art, I guess, and they reproduced it as accurately as possible. And so there are no labels and no numbers on any of the cards, which I loved. I've been getting into a lot of decks lately, oracle decks and other kinds of decks that are just for image reading, that aren't dictating to me through a label what the meanings are. They let me determine that on my own. So this deck doesn't have any images, any labeling or any numbers. Now, it doesn't come in the liftoff box like I saw on Simon's channel, Hermit's Cave. It's a pink back. I think his was a different color. But when I went online to order, the website had two options. If you were from Europe, you ordered from one option. If you were from the US, they kind of pushed you to order from the other option. I don't remember if I had a choice to order the European one, because I think they did that for shipping. Like if you were in the US, you order from the US one because of the shipping, and in the UK, the other one. So I thought, oh, well, that's the only difference, it's the shipping. Well, apparently it's not, because this box is different from the glorious box that Simon got. He got a beautiful lift-off box. It was like a padded box. And I was really excited because these decks supposedly come with 2 special extra images, bonus cards. And one of his bonus cards was a purple hermit, which I loved. I thought, ooh, I can't wait to get hold of that. Which one am I going to use, the blue hermit or the purple hermit? And I thought, oh, maybe I'll use them both, blue for the day and purple for the night. But they relieved me of that choice, because the deck that I got doesn't have that card in it. It has 2 bonus art cards in it that Simon didn't have, but I'd rather have had the purple hermit. These are the bonus cards of Pixie's art, which are nice enough as, extra art cards, but I don't really need them. I wanted that purple hermit. And the reason I specifically chose this deck is they give you an option of whether to order the blue flower back or this kaleidoscopic crackle back, and I'm all for the crackle back. Now this one, as you can see, it's not quite the same. This is a symmetrical kaleidoscopic crackleback versus the one on the Tarot of A.E. Waite. So, they look very similar, but this one is, is symmetrical, mirror image. And these cards, the cardstock is excellent. The feel of the cards is a little different. If you hold them at an angle, they almost look like linen, so they don't have quite the semi-gloss sheen of the Tarot of A.E. Waite. And I'm not sure if I like that as well. I kind of like that little bit of sheen. These are almost matte. The plus of this deck is, again, no copyright and borderless images. And besides borderless images, no labels, no numbers. Now, on top of that, you also have more image. Look at the bottom. Look at all that cliff underneath the Fool that you don't get on the A.E. Waite, that you get on this Pam's original. So, some of you might like that, having extra image to work with. Here, look, there's more. It's just blank color, but look at the foot of the High Priestess. There's more flora there. I think there's also more, a little more ocean in the back. I'm not sure. Here on the Emperor, you get an extension below the seat down here, and a little more mountains on either side. These don't look quite as sharp to me as the AE Waite. The AE Waite, the line work is so crisp, and I think I looked at a website and it looked to me like that was done from the Pam A series of plates. The only difference between it that I could discern was between the AE Waite one and the Pam A is the font at the bottom. Otherwise, I looked over the sequence of images, and this one matched the Pam A closer than any of the others I could discern. There's something about these that almost has a bootleg quality to it. I don't know why. If there's more grass under the feet of the sphinxes. A lot of it's not like important extra detail, you know, more land. The Hermit blue is pretty vivid. More clouds at the bottom. So they're just sort of like more extended. I guess because of the labels not being there. I don't know if it was on the original work and the labels covered them up, or if somebody has just kind of taken some artistic liberty to put more info at the bottom. In a lot of cases it's more at the bottom, like under her signature, and sometimes there's a little more at the top or a little bit more at the sides. The coloration on this deck seems a little less subtle and a little more garish. And like I said, it has a certain kind of bootleg quality to it I can't quite put my finger on. It's almost like somebody took one of the other decks and took it to a color Xerox place or something. I don't know. The blues are, and these blues are bright blue. They're kind of too bright for me. I thought this was going to be my soul deck, but I think the AE Waite might be my new soul deck. It seems the most accurate to Pam's intent. Look at this one. There's a blurriness to the horse at the bottom. So I got excited when I saw this and I ordered this deck because I thought, ooh, the cracklebacks I like. No labels, no numbers, borderless. What could be better? But, you know, the coloration isn't quite what I'd hoped for. The finish isn't quite as glossy as I like. And the definition just isn't quite there. On some of the cards, oh my God, look at the red head on that horse. Like, talk about the blushing fool. This horse is like in a frenzy of sunburn. There was another image. I don't know if I can find. Oh yeah, here. I don't know if I can find this in the other deck quickly, but the three women on the cups, one of them has like rosy cheeks or some kind of a red rash. Let's see if I can find it quickly on the AE Waite to compare. Well, she has a little bit of it here, but it's less obvious. It's much more subtle. And look at the difference in the garish coloring. See, I think at this point, I'll take the labeling and the borders if I get more clarity and the handling or rendering of the imagery is more subtle than this kind of like knocks you over the head coloring. Look at the look under the pumpkins and stuff on this one. See, there's extra on there. The cups in here have a little more ground under them. I know a lot of you are saying, oh, I don't care, it's just like extra space under there filled in, but you know, these are subtle differences, and sometimes subtle differences mean more to some people than others. I think there's more of the island or shoreline under this queen than the other deck, and more ocean under the king. So I don't know. This is my first impression of this because I just got it today. I might have to live with it a little bit longer, but if I go by my gut instinct, right now I'm sticking with the AE Waite over this Pam's original, and still hoping that someday they will come out with the perfect deck. I'm also going to see how easily it is. I find it to work without the labels and numbers. The numbers is not an issue because you can just count the pentacles and the wands and whatnot if you can't remember. Although for most people who've studied this, they've kind of committed them to memory by now. I did have a little bit of trouble with the majors trying to remember the sequence. I mean, I know what each of the major cards is, but I couldn't quite remember. If I had to sit down and be given a test in order, which ones are Roman numeral, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. The initial few that I know, but I don't know what sequence they come in after that, and I should. I'm still early days studying this. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough, and I hope some of this is helpful to you discerning collectors, and to those who didn't care, you don't care. You sped through or clicked off. Anyway, I'm going to probably do a little birthday tribute video tomorrow or the next day. And I have a few other decks to review for you. But I hope this was in some way a helpful guide in, if not persuading you to buy one of these decks, dissuading you from buying one of the ones you didn't like. So that's what these are all about, a lot of them. Anyway, thank you, and I will see you again soon.